YouTube, what's good? It's your boy, Paulus Harris, aka Medusa. Hey, if this is your first time tuning in, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell every time I post up new content. Listen, people, I know what I said. I really wasn't actually really gonna do this show until Monday. And as you can see, I'm outside in my garage, right? But I really couldn't hold this. I really couldn't hold this until Monday because it's almost like for me, right? It's almost like when the question when you're in class, because everybody here has been to school, bullshit education, right? So when the teacher, so-called teacher, asks you a question, and let's just say for shits and giggles, motherfuckers say, well, what's the capital of Arkansas? And then you being from Arkansas, you say, ooh, I know the answer to that question. And then the teacher can actually really see your hand, and she know that you know the answer. But this bitch, she go and ask somebody else the question, right? And considering they live in Little Rock, Arkansas too, but they get the wrong fucking answer, right? So this whole episode, right, is gonna be like, okay, well, who discovered America? A lot of motherfuckers would actually really say Christopher Columbus, right? Or at least this is what the fuck they used to say, right? But the thing about it though is this, people. When you actually really look at discovery, at a discovery or a so-called discovery, and y'all gonna have to excuse me because I'm out here in my garage and it's like hot as shit out here. But I just feel like, okay, this is one episode that I feel like that I just gotta do outside. Gotta do outside. And so I just look at it like, okay, well, how many of y'all actually really know about the doctrine of discovery, right? A doctrine that was actually really implemented by the so-called Christians, which for the most part, if you actually really stop and think about it, this is like a continuation of the show that I did yesterday, as far as like Christians and atheists. Who is worse? And then I had a motherfucker that actually really want to call himself Bob Dole, which I doubt very seriously that was Bob Dole, because Bob Dole, right, is 97 years old. I actually really went and looked at his profile, and this motherfucker is like 97 years old. So for the most part, right, I really don't, I'm really gonna call bullshit on if indeed there was Bob Dole. Now, I'm not gonna sit up here and be like, well, a 97-year-old can actually really look at YouTube or whatever and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna call bullshit on a particular person. But it's just for the simple fact that I went back and I looked at what he said, and then I actually really gave two replies. So I just said, oh, so you talking about yourself. And then I actually really went on. I actually went back on the show that I did previously. And I actually really replied to him again. And I actually said Christopher Columbus and the D.O.D. No, I'm not talking about the Department of Defense, but I'm actually really talking about the doctrine of discovery. Now, if you actually really don't know what the doctrine of discovery is, it is a doctrine that's actually really put out by the Christian faith for all it. So Jesus is Lord, right? Jesus Christ or Jesus the Christ, right? So on top of y'all actually really doing blood sacrifices, right? Doing shit for the most part that you really ain't got no business doing, right? Celebrating a birthday for the most part that is not the actual day, but you want everybody to actually really want to believe that December 25th is the actual day, knowing damn well that it's June 25th. Jesus is Lord. Me and you talked about this, and you still couldn't catch it, which is understandable. You're a goddamn Christian. You don't know no motherfucking better, right? But all with the fuck I'm trying to tell y'all is this. And just like I said, whether you actually really want to look at this as a continuation of what the show that I did yesterday, or you actually really want to look at this as a brand new show where I'm actually really talking about the doctrine of discovery, right? Because which was actually really implemented by the Christians over there in Europe. But then again, when you actually really stop and think about it for a minute, let's actually really stop and think about this for a minute, right? Over there, so this was over there in Europe, which, and for the most part, let's just know that Europe is a continent, not a country. Just like how a lot of you motherfuckers actually really look at Africa as a country when knowing damn well it's a motherfucking continent. And yes, Jesus the Lord, I dare you to actually really come at me and talk about that I'm drinking. I dare you, I challenge you. Right now. But I know you ain't watching because you probably too busy. I'm not even gonna go there with you. I'm not even gonna go there with you, dog. Like really. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. Doctrine of discovery. If you don't know anything about it, I suggest you Google it. Don't actually really talk. Don't actually really take my word for it. Go and do the research for yourself. Like really. But like I say, started off in Europe, which for the most part, I'm not going to actually really say it's a hop, skip, and a jump from the continent of Africa, right? But if you actually really want to stop and think about a point of origin or where all this stuff actually really took place, right? And even then, you can't sit up here. You cannot truly be like, okay, well, Africa or so-called Africa, which is a continent, once again, right? You actually really can't just sit up here and say, well, like, look, this is that Africa is the point of origin of man, because y'all too busy listening to what the hell Dr. Leakey had to say. Because I've said this plenty of times, right? When you throw a rock, when you pick a rock up and you throw it in some water. So let's just say that body of water is a lake or a pond or whatever. I'm not going to actually really say a river, because depending on how big the rock is or whatever, it's actually really going to move from the point of origin and where it actually really lands. But now actually, when I actually really stop and think about it for a minute, let's actually really say that I threw the rock in a river, and the current actually really took it further than where I actually really threw it at. So for the most part, it actually really landed after the water then captured it and took it as far as like the water say, or as Yahweh say, well, you know what? I threw it here. It landed here. But me being the type of source that I am, me being the type of source that I am, I'm gonna actually really take it a little bit farther than where you actually really threw it. But not to worry, right? Your fingerprints, your DNA is actually like really on this water, on this rock that you haven't really chunked in the river. So let's just say that thousands of years go by, right? And then here comes Dr. Leakey and his crew, and they find this one rock, and it has DNA on this rock. And it's like, oh, guess what? Human beings were here. So now we got to be like, okay, well, where are the bones? Where are the bones? Right? So for the most part, right? So you go down further, right? Which you go down further, and the continent that what what is actually really identified as Africa, right? And then here come Dr. Leakey and his crew or whatever, and they say, oh, we got human bones here. And so for the most part, he gonna be like, well, guess what? This is where man was created. That's a bunch of nonsense, people. Because and just for the simple fact that I call it nonsense, because I am living proof that when you have a point of origin, my point of origin is Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm now here in Texas. So let's just say for shits and giggles, right? That I'm the first man, and whoever my mate was or is, right? We actually really start there in Little Rock, Arkansas, but we moved to Texas, right? And then we both die in Texas. Now, grant the fact, we didn't have plenty of kids, plenty of children, right? And then just like the kids, right? We branch out too. And so we die in a particular point from where it actually really all started, right? Like I said, I just told y'all, I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. That's my point of origin. I'm here in Texas. So guess what? 9 times out of 10, I'm going to die right here in Texas. They're going to bury me right here in Texas. Right? According to what I actually really be like, okay, well, hey, look, when I die, this is what y'all need to do to the body, which for the most part, I really ain't gonna know, because goddamn it, I'm dead. They can actually really like, okay, yeah, this is what he wanted, but we gonna wrap his ass up in some bed sheets, dig a hole in the backyard and call it a motherfucking day. And then how the hell you gonna know? You dead. Right? So, but like I say, I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, and I die here in Texas. Just because I die here in Texas don't mean that I'm from Texas, right? And so basically, Dr. Leakey and all of his infinite knowledge and wisdom, for the most part, I actually really question all that. Well, a lot of y'all actually really look at it, right? Dr. Leakey was just as dumb as a box of rocks. Matter of fact, he's dumber than a box of rocks. because the box of rocks have enough about themselves to actually really stay still. A box of rocks will not speculate. Matter of fact, they can't speculate. Matter of fact, the box of rocks really don't know. They don't know nothing. But then when you actually really look at the box of rocks, I can look at a lot of y'all as a bunch of box of rocks. Because for the most part, yeah, you stay still. But for the most part, you don't know what the hell is going on. So somebody can pick you up and choke you in some water, not really knowing that you finna like actually really create history or you know, for the most part, I actually really need to come up with a word, right? It ain't necessarily got to actually really make sense, right? But I really don't like the word history because for the most part, I look at the word history and then I could actually really say his story. That's how I actually, you know, that's how I can actually really look at it, right? So for another case, going back to the doggone doctrine of discovery, right? It's almost like a law that you actually really did never, it's almost like a law that you never knew that existed, right? And it's almost like, well, you know, I'm not going to go there, but, you know, it's almost like, well, yeah, I got to go there for a lot of y'all to actually really understand. So for the most part, you got to be like, okay, well, what new nigga law is this? How come we just not finding out about it? And if you have to really fast forward that stuff to 2020, or what is actually really called 2020, you got to be like, oh, so what new nigga law is this? When was it passed? Right? Well, and I'm pretty sure, like right now, just like it was back then, a council was actually really held. As far as like what laws will be passed, what laws would actually really be shot down. Right? You know, because you know, for the most part, I look at the whole Trayvon Martin case. I look at the stuff that happened up in Ferguson. I look at the stuff that happened up in New York, right? But if you had to really stop and think about it for a minute, right? Out of those events, especially the one that happened in Ferguson, you know, they actually really offered his mother a seat on the city council. So what the fuck does that tell you? So it's almost like, okay, well, you know what? Guess what? We ain't got the money to give you nothing. Well, we gonna put you on the city council, right? But at the same time, you gotta ask yourself, yeah, you give me a job on the city council, but what is my actual role? Sitting on the city council, right? It's you know, because I tend to look at it in a way where that, okay, you part of the camera crew. And then you're like, okay, well, what's your job? Oh, I put the plug in, right? That ain't actually really being a part of the camera crew, right? All what the hell you doing is giving them power. Or so-called power. Now, if that's your actual job on the camera crew, then hey, by all means, take pride in your job, but just know this: what you got? You know, I'm doing a show about Christopher Columbus, right? Is that what they teach y'all in school? They don't teach y'all about Christopher Columbus being the first guy to discover America?
The only thing they teach us about is the September 11th, 2001, is Twin Towers falling
So they'll tell you, yeah, come on, come in. This is my granddaughter, y'all. Say hey. Say hey to me, lady. Right? So here it is, you know. So they don't teach y'all about Christopher Columbus. So how about you tell the people out there what they actually teach y'all, what they teach y'all in school today?
We didn't go to school today.
No, when I say today, as far as like, okay, what's in the school curriculum today versus how it was when your papa was in.
So what we do now is it's different with the virus going around. Like on the floor now, they have like dots that are this big.
Yeah. Hold on. She in here with me. Go ahead and you know we'll come back later. You know, but here's the deal. Here's the deal, people. You know, for the most part, really didn't have. Well, like this, I never had a lot of confidence in the educational system. I never did, right? You know, especially what's actually really going on now, right? So, you know, I just look at it like this. Christopher Columbus, Doctrine of Discovery. And then it's just like what I said earlier, right? Christians, so-called Christians, and atheists. Who's worse? Because I already told you the Christians, so-called Christians, they are just as bad as the devil worshipers, if not worse. Right? Because for the most part, they actually really pushed the whole Christianity thing. They really pushed it, and they pushed it hard. And then King James was actually really part of that. The very first Bible that was actually really published, King James, he spelled his name with an I, not a J, right? But then if you actually really go back and look at how they actually really used to spell Hawaii, it had the I and then the initial I actually like really became a J, right? And you know, for the most part, I was actually really gonna come out here, and which for the most part, I think I did it for the most part as yesterday goes. But the thing that I look at Christians, so-called Christians, y'all actually really don't exist. Well, just for the simple fact, instead of y'all actually really saying Jesus the Christ, y'all say Jesus Christ, like this guy actually really got a first name and a last name. That is not how the song goes. I'm telling you, that's not how the song goes. So Jesus Christ, his followers are Christians. It was the Christians that actually really put in the law of discovery, right? Meaning that, oh, yeah, you here on this land, but do you actually really follow the doctrine? Do you actually really follow the doctrine? Do you actually follow the doctrine? I had to do that because a lot of these people on YouTube, that's what they do. They'll sit up here and it'll be at regular speed, then they'll slow it down, and then they really slow it down. So, like you didn't catch it like right off, right? So, like I said, people, Christopher Columbus and the D.O.D, or the Doctrine of Discovery. Don't take my word of what I just told you. Go and do the research. Just Google Doctrine of Discovery. How did it actually really come about? And how was it actually really implemented? especially when he came over here in 1492. And he realized there was already people over here, right? And then I'll be the first one to tell you, right, that me, just like everybody else, you be like, oh, Christopher Columbus discovered America. Oh, Christopher Columbus discovered America. Oh, Christopher Columbus discovered America. Again, I had to do that because that's what a lot of these YouTubers will actually really do. Again, they are playing at regular speed. They're slowly but surely slow it down, and then they draw on your mouth as if you didn't know what the hell was going on with the previous two. So here's the deal, people. Here's the deal. And like I said, this is like a continuation of what I did a couple days. It was just yesterday. If you actually start want to think about it for a minute. So again, this is what's happening. This is what they're selling. And they've been selling it for years. But how many of y'all have actually really caught on to what they are selling? Like seriously. Do we actually really need to actually really just stop and think about it for a minute and be like, okay, this is what's happening and this is why it's happening. That's what you have to ask yourself. Do the research, people. Research, research, research. And then after you have research, then you need to rehearse of what the hell you just researched, right? And then once you actually really feel that you're ready, then you come out here and you present it towards the audience. Whether or not that they actually really trying to hear what you're saying. But eventually they will, right? Because I just look at it like this. Not to say that, well, I tell you what, I'll actually really compare, and I really hate comparing. But, and for the most part, like, if I just felt like I just really had to compare myself to anybody, I would actually really compare myself to Vincent van Gogh, right? Leonardo da Vinci. And for the most part, my dad, John Martindale, right? If I was actually really going to pattern myself after a one individual or individuals, right? But hey, people, it is what it is. Trust me, it is what it is. So anybody that's actually really going to watch this, my assignment for y'all is this. Go look up the Doctrine of Discovery, or actually really go on YouTube and be like, Doctrine of Discovery. And then for the most part, what you might see will shock you. Because I actually really watched some stuff a while back where that white folks, so-called white folks, would actually really try to cash in on what is actually really rightfully ours. And then for the most part, I got one more thing that I'm gonna show y'all, and I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna hold this thought right there. So here's the deal, people. Here's a penny, right? But for the most part, everybody classify themselves as being black, right? If you actually really stop and pay attention to what the hell I just actually really put on my forehead. Now, grant the fact, hold on. Well, when it fell off, right? Which is the first. But if you actually really stop and think about, as far as like what the hell they call us, right? They call us black, so-called black, right? And just know that for the most part, that this penny is on the top of my forehead, and no, it's not the third eye, because there's no such animal as the third eye, right? But if you actually really stop and think about the color of this penny, and then the color of me, right? Now, I can actually really, let me say something. Now you can't tell what the hook is there until I actually like, can you actually tell what it is or where it is? And no, I'm not actually really trying to show off. I'm trying to actually really give y'all like an indication of who you are and what you are. You are never black. You just goddamn penny color. All right? The shirt that I got on is black. My tattoos are black. And whatever little hair that I got on my head and on my mustache, that's black. You've never been black. And if you're black, you never would have been a slave. Or if you're black, you never was African American. Because Africa, once again, is a continent, not a country. It is many countries in Africa, the continent. All right? So take that with you on this so-called bull, on this so-called nonsense Columbus Day weekend. Actually, stop and think about it for a minute. Because people already told you, hey, look, people are already over here. But the Christians, the so-called Christians, that want you to actually really believe that Jesus Christ is the actual name, right? The same people that actually really want you to put on that robe, always have your arms crossed like this, as if you were dead, which for the most part, that really wasn't nothing more than a sign up there. That's why they had to actually really do it. But then, but then again, right? If you actually really stop and think about it for a minute, where have you actually really seen this before? Till next time.